Welcome, Marvelites, back to this week's episode of the MCU Exchange podcast. Sadly, Aaron cannot join us this week, so I'm going to take over hosting duties. Joining me, of course, is Charles.
What's up?
And we're just going to jump right into the biggest stories of the weeks. Let's start off. We finally have a release date for WandaVision, and it's in 2021. Early in January, we will finally get to see WandaVision, and we got some details. But before we jump into the details, Charles, what do you think of the reveal that it is going to be in 2021?
I mean, I'm kind of relieved that we can finally put all the guessing and speculation to rest because, like, at some point I was feeling really super, I guess, tiring. Like, is it coming out on Thanksgiving? Is it like on Christmas Day or whatever? Now at least we know it's not too far off, January 15. You know, it's only going to be a couple of weeks, but it is kind of exciting that we finally have a date, and 2021, I guess, will usher in the year we finally have an MCU property, since I guess 2020 is officially MCU devoid. It's devoid of anything MCU. So it's nice to know. I'm glad it's not too far, and I'm just happy that all the guessing has to end.
I'm there with you because it was such a back and forth. Who's right and what info? Is it Thanksgiving, Christmas? Is it going to air while Mandalorian is airing? It's been a crazy year, especially with all these delays. And it's good to have a date, especially with Disney Plus, to finally come out. The interesting with that, 2020 is the first year without an MCU film. So the only Marvel related content we have is pretty much unofficially Hellstrom and, well, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. finale.
I mean, both shows I've kind of passed on, but
Yeah.
I'll take. I guess it's not as I think for the past 10 years, the MCU has pretty much dominated the box office, and like we always talk about fatigue, but I think this year of not having any MCU content is actually very beneficial because people are just so hungry, and because of that, the MCU is gonna return with such a bang because we got this 1 year break. It's a nice 1 year break from the craziness that was the Infinity Saga. So it's a very welcome return for sure.
And we already saw that, like, how big the trailer was for WandaVision. Like, that did numbers that normally Avengers Endgame did. So people are hungry for it.
Sure.
And the interesting thing is that we did get some in Entertainment Weekly who gave us a little insight. They also said that the show is going to be 6 hours long, which is interesting if we consider that, there's always been talks about around 6 hours or 6 episodes being discussed, but we know from Mandalorian that the episodes can range a lot. So it can be 40 minutes, it can be 50 minutes, it can be an hour if necessary. What do you take away from the 6 hours? Does this just confirm the length, or do you think it might be episode count?
It's so weird because initially I thought it was like episode count because when you talk about TV nowadays, it's usually you can talk about it in like an hour. Like, oh, it's an hour's worth of story. We're gonna get 6 hours, like a 6 hour movie. You immediately think, oh, it's 6 episodes. But like you said, we've seen in the Mandalorian that they're not slavish to a certain I guess requirement for how long an episode should be. Like the first episode of the Mandalorian was like I think an hour, and then episode 2 was like 40 minutes, and like now it's just like fucking 30 minutes. So it's all over the place. I wonder if it even is like like what if it's just 6 episodes and it doesn't even amount to 6 hours? That's what I'm I guess worried about. But I mean it is sort of has the sitcom format. So I mean sitcoms back in the day were like 20, 30 minutes, so it makes sense. So let's see, but I'm kind of hoping that um, it's not just 6 episodes. I hope they get creative with like the Mandalorian. They get creative with how long they want each episode to be.
Yeah, I agree. And the best thing I think about what we've seen with Disney Plus is, unlike like the Netflix series that had like this really strict 13 episode rule, even though they themselves said that it was a bad idea, that they seem to not really hold the show to a specific format. Because even Netflix was like 40 minutes to an hour, so it always went over the classic hour concept. And Disney Plus was just like whatever you need to do the story. So And I agree with you. I hope we see longer episodes or just I want more of it. I think it's kind of sad. It's like, okay, only 6 weeks of content after this long of a drought. It's going to be interesting. Or if they really go for like the sitcom format and it's just like a half-hour show every single week, it's going to be interesting. And there's one aspect I also found interesting is that they revealed that they did in fact show or have episodes with a live studio audience, which is interesting because if you consider Marvel's history, they are very strict. They are very, very focused on secret keeping. So them like gang, let's bring in random people to be an audience for a show. They did say the NDAs were very strict, but it's still so odd that like a lot of shows, even with Black Widow being postponed, we have no idea about what's happening like with Taskmaster, and still a lot is being kept under lock and key with WandaVision. What do you think about the live studio audience?
If I'm not mistaken, the way Disney does the screenings and test audiences and whatnot, they usually get people who are related to their staff members,
Mm,
just so there's that sort of insurance for that. Oh, if you fucking talk about this movie you just saw, then your loved one who works for us is gonna get fired. It's kind of like almost scary, but if I'm not mistaken, that's how it goes. So I wouldn't be surprised if they brought that policy over with test screen the live studio
mm,
audience. Is like maybe the production designer's son is part of the audience. Obviously, he can fucking tell anyone about it, or his dad's getting fired. So I think at least that's how I envision how to ensure these secrets. But it is kind of cool that they actually they went for the authentic route and actually got people to watch it as a live studio audiences, because they could have easily just put in a fake laugh track and called it a day. But the fact that they want to keep it authentic is super exciting. I also read in the
mm.
EW article that because they were gonna post process it in black and white, like they had to paint Vision blue just so it would look good in grayscale. That attention to detail is just like super duper fascinating and honestly very exciting to me. The fact that you're willing to go, the extra mile to make everything authentic. The set design, the lighting, the way the makeup looks like against like a black and white monochromatic
Mm.
filter. It's just so much work put into it, and the live studio audience is just like the icing on top.
I hope that, especially what we're seeing with WandaVision, like this is a sign for how unique these Disney Plus shows are going to get, because they're not as restricted as one is with film, because they're still you kind of have to go by certain rules to get an audience, to get people's attention. The Marvel formula existed for a certain reason, but we're seeing more and more ever since kind of Kevin Feige split off from Marvel and worked under Disney. He's been going into more crazy or interesting creative aspects. And I'm really, really curious how this is going to carry over. Like, is She-Hulk going to be a show that's just like a different case every week? I made a reference once. I think it would be amazing if they took inspiration from Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, which just
Oh
had like
man.
that would be so much fun and such a unique aspect, because she is also known for kind of breaking the fourth wall in the comics. So there's so much potential with these shows. And I hope WandaVision is kind of that showcase of what it could be. Do you have any hopes for the shows moving forward? Like what kind of type of show you would love to see? Something creative, or like what you expect from an existing one that was announced?
Like, I mean, because it's WandaVision, you can absolutely go crazy. The source material from Tom King was
Mm,
I mean by design super duper ambitious and very very eccentric and um offbeat. But for something like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I can't imagine them going too crazy with I guess with the tone. If I have to guess, it's probably going to be similar to Winter Soldier, which is like a standard espionage political
mm,
thriller with a lot of action. Like you don't have much leeway with that, but with something like Loki, you got time travel. Obviously, there's going to be some period pieces put into that, and obviously with like I said, She-Hulk, she's a lawyer. Obviously, you can do like a procedural court drama thing. But for other shows, I think they have to like be I guess they have to stay true to what the comics is. Um, Off the top of my head, I think Moon Knight has a bit of leeway, I guess, because of how of how introspective that show is. You can go crazy,
Mm,
similar to what they Legion. You could show like the various, I guess, depictions of how how this man with mental illness perceives the world. There's a lot of leeway and creative freedom to
yeah.
do whatever. Because the Moon Knight comics, especially the recent ones, have been really, really crazy. So
Oh yeah,
for
definitely.
Moon Knight,
I'm hoping for Mr. Knight to show up. And speaking of all these shows, we also got the tease that this like WandaVision will pay off a lot of people that have stuck with the franchise early on. A lot of connections will exist between this show and past films, which also opens up the question if there are any connections with Black Widow, which is a film that was going to release in May. So we all assumed it might have some kind of connection, and there's a reason why it sets off Phase 4. Is there some kind of connection that you hope to see in this, or some kind of cameo or appearance?
I mean, I just actually thought of this now as you were talking about that.
Mm,
I am curious, what if we're gonna see WandaVision throughout the years from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and whatnot. What if in her world, all the stuff in the MCU that happened in her world. So in the
mm,
50s, as she was living this life with Vision, what if Civil War happens? What like how are they gonna talk about Civil War in the 50s? I don't know if that's gonna happen, but just the idea that what if all the events in the MCU takes place in Wanda's made up world as the
mm.
ages go by, as the years go by. I'm super curious, but I'd love to see that them tackle that idea, I guess.
That's a great idea, yeah. Just to see like them having a fight in this sitcom world, and it kind of flashes between or has parallels to Civil War in that sense.
Yeah.
Curious if we might see a reveal of like Ultron making a cameo in some form, a human form. I'm a huge fan of James Spader, so that would be an
Oh
amazing
yeah.
cameo to see.
Oh my god. Holy shit. I didn't even fucking think about that until now.
Because
That would
technically
be.
he could play the dad of Vision.
Oh my god. Holy shit. That would be. Oh my god. That would be the fucking sickest thing ever if they did that.
Here's hoping whatever they have planned. I hope we're gonna see a lot of different, because if you're gonna change and alter an entire dimension based on their history, you can do so much. So I hope we see a lot of parallels to their history as we go move forward. And as we're speaking about like also our friend Charles over at over at Murphy's Multiverse has revealed that potentially we're going to see Disney Gallery a version for WandaVision, which is fantastic because I loved, I don't know, have you seen the Mandalorian one?
I haven't seen the gallery one, but I've heard great things about it. So it only makes sense that they do it for WandaVision. The thing for me is, like, since the MCU started, like back when there was like physical copies, I fucking used to go to the store to get these copies
Mm,
of Avengers, Iron Man, Thor. I got them mainly for the DCS stuff because the Iron Man one was super expensive. It was like an hour long movie of how Robert Downey got cast, how he
mm.
prepared for the role, and how I guess the character in the comics morphed throughout the years, and how it came down to which version of the character do we take for the movie, and that kind of stuff has always fascinated me. So the fact that they're doing that for WandaVision makes me super excited. Like I can't wait to see what their process was like.
Yeah, same here, and I think that this might be the closest look we'll get. Like even the behind the scenes things, it was just like okay, snippets and to discuss it. But I think one of the best things about the Mandalorian Disney Gallery is that they have the directors, the producers, everyone who was involved just talk about their own experiences, their inspirations, and then have the actors come together and talk about it. And I'm really, really interested to see, what experiences they have, especially with Kevin Feige sharing his own what inspired them to do WandaVision, and maybe which direction they're going with these shows. Plus they can pretty much get two shows for the price of one.
Oh yeah, it's content, man. It's content that will draw more subscribers.
Speaking of content, WandaVision, we went through pretty much everything that's there, but there's one more Disney Plus show we can talk about. There was a big reveal that in a casting call, they are currently looking for an audiologist in the show Hawkeye. Now, the interesting thing is most fans of the Matt Fraction run will know that, well, Clint Barton loses his hearing. He shoots a sonic arrow that goes wrong, and he loses the hearing and has to use hearing aids. There's even some episodes some issues where they follow him not being able to hear what's going on. Are you surprised by this news, or do you think we're going to get like an episode that focuses on him dealing with not being able to hear anything?
I mean, you were just talking about like how creative the D plus shows can get. I mean, if you're gonna deal with Hawkeye's hearing impairment, what if you make an episode that's like almost completely, I guess, silent and muffled? I mean, it's gonna be like super, like for people like us who aren't deaf,
Mm.
if they make an episode where they actually show us like, oh my god, this is what it feels like to be deaf, and we can actually, vicariously feel the how it's like claustrophobic to not hear anything. Oh my god, that'd be fucking amazing.
No.
So if they like tackle the deafness like that and to make it into an episode where you can't hear anything, I think that'd be really amazing.
And I think it's something that you can do with the Disney Plus show, especially because it is like giving us a feeling of how it is adapting to that. And I also wonder, like, we still don't know how exactly Kate Bishop is going to fit into the entire story or even his family. But like the fact that he can't hear anything anymore, especially after everything he went through at Endgame, he for being the most human, he really does not get a break from everyone. It's going to be interesting. I hope they do. I hope they take that risk and say, let's do an entire episode, because some of the best issues in Fractions Run were the ones like there was one focusing on the pizza dog on Lucky, or
Yeah.
one where he just couldn't talk. And I kind of hope we get that in the show. I mean, I'll respect
Mhm.
them if they make an entire episode about the dog.
I think the thing with the fraction stuff, because the art was so expressive, the art and paneling was so unique, they had a lot of leeway to
Mm,
get creative with the issues. Like when you in the Lucky issue, like you can kind of make out what they're saying, but also it's also from the perspective of a dog. So it's like,
no.
what do these words mean for the dog? I'm not quite sure how you would exactly depict that unless you, I guess you infuse a little bit of like quirky animations in the episode. But I would love a pizza dog episode.
I think it would be like they could do a lot of things like as you said, like animations that kind of showcase what he's thinking. But I would also love to have like action sequences happening in the background and him like not paying attention, but we're following the dog anyway. You just see
Yeah.
everything like happening in the background. There's a lot, this comes back to the point. You could do so much with these Disney Plus shows, and it looks like they're really taking a few shows where you can be really creative with it. So it's going to be really exciting once they roll out where we're going to head, and as they are slowly all kind of getting into production. It's just curious with 2021 kicking off the Disney Plus shows is when will we see Falcon the Winter Soldier and Loki, which is I think only finishing up. Uh,
Yeah.
th- Done with Disney Plus. Let's go over to the movies. We finally got some movie news after some long drought. Thor: Love and Thunder. It's going to take place shortly after the events from Endgame, where we saw Thor join the Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, everyone loved making the joke of the Asgardians of the Galaxy, but we weren't sure if Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 would come first or Thor: Love and Thunder. So a lot of theories came out until the Phase 4 reveal. So there was the big question: are we going to see the Guardians in Thor: Love and Thunder, which is already such a bloated cast? We have Tessa Thompson. We have the Mighty Thor, so Natalie Portman taking over as a Thor character. We have, of course, Chris Hemsworth returning. Then the story of Christian Bale playing a villain. Korg is going to potentially return. And now finally got the news that Chris Pratt is also going to return. But surprisingly, only Chris Pratt has been confirmed. What do you think of the news?
Wasn't there like a news that Groot and Rocket might be showing up?
There
I
was a
swear there was.
rumor, yeah. There was a rumor, but
Yeah,
never confirmed.
I think that was from like I think comicbook.com.
Mm,
I think Vin Diesel even confirmed that himself. But I mean, Chris Pratt and Thor and Chris Hemsworth, they obviously have the dumbest, most fun chemistry we've seen in the MCU since I don't know, like in years maybe. Just seeing them try to like out leader each other is so fucking stupid and so funny. Of course, he's a welcome addition to Love and Thunder, but realistically, if we're gonna, if you had to like think just how much is he gonna be in the show, I think we talked about this in the previous episode, but there's gonna be probably a scene in the opening where Thor gets kicked out of the the ship
Mm.
and he gets stranded because they can't stand him. I could see that being the full extent of Pratt's cameo, or maybe it's like a Doctor Strange cameo where he helps out for like one act and then he goes away. It could be like that, but I don't think he's gonna be as as much of a presence in the movie like Christian Bale.
Yeah, I agree, and I think most likely it's going to be like a short appearance in the beginning. Maybe they'll show up at some point to help him with something. There was the tease from Taika Waititi about they're going to have space sharks, so I think we're not going to see Thor himself on Earth too much. But it's kind
Yeah.
of the thing. We know nothing about this film, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot. And I'm really curious how Taika Waititi is going to tie it all together, especially with Natalie Portman returning as Jane Foster and becoming Thor. Because Mjolnir does not exist anymore in this world, could this be connected to the multiverse aspects that are being introduced with WandaVision and Doctor Strange? It's crazy, and I think Phase 4, with all the Disney Plus shows, is really, really going to turn into something unique. And I'm curious if they can keep it in check, that it doesn't go too wild, because you don't want to lose too many people with way too many connecting dots. But I'm excited. I'm really excited to see where we're going with this. And on the finals, we finally got something for Eternals. So some Eternals promo art leaked. Sadly, the film has been delayed for an entire year, so we're not going to see it until next year, November, I think, with Shang-Chi taking over a July release date. What do you think of Eternals? I have to confess, I don't know much about the characters. So have you read the comics, and are you excited for the film?
I've read the Neil Gaiman run, which I think is the basis for the movie. It's like the modern retelling of how the Eternals came to be on Earth. I personally
Hmm.
wasn't blown away by the comic per se, but it does give you like a clear look, or rather a solid idea of what the movie could be. So I am kind of excited. I am kind of curious why it's like one full year away. I know we heard recently that I think from the WandaVision EW coverage that despite the release dates shifting, it's still mostly determined by the continuity they want for Phase 4. So the fact that Eternals is so far away is so peculiar for me because I don't think it's gonna be connected to anything mostly. That's why they can afford to like, oh, let's delay it for an entire year. So I think there's that. As for the concept art, my problem with the Eternals since they showed the first look at Comic Con last year was that they kind of look too much like Asgardians.
Mm.
And not that looking like an Asgardian is bad, but when you look at Jack Kirby's original Eternals artwork, they look super over the top with oversized armor and just bombastic colors and whatnot. And I'm kind of bummed that they they strayed away from the large oversized armor because I kind of would have loved to see that. Now it's kind of like form fitting stuff that we always see with the like the Asgardians and I guess every other costume here.
Yeah.
Man, I kind of say they stuck with the Jack Kirby super over the top design because I think that would really make the Eternals as a team stand out visually.
I think you make a good point because they are very, like, it seems almost intended that they're similar to Asgardians designs. I
Mhm.
wonder if like they are somehow connected throughout the story. I remember like early on there were theories that, oh, a young Odin might show up or something. It is strange. The Jack Kirby designs are very out there but very creative. I wonder if they're smart about it. Like I would love to see like they have battle armor that turns into those original designs. Like they're inspired by Earth and something like that.
That sounds fucking. Look, if like we see the form fitting suits and then they fight and then a large ass fucking armor like forms over them,
Yeah.
I'd lose.
Here's hoping they do it. And I'm curious. Like we did also get our first look at the Deviant or the Deviant leader, who looks completely different. Like he looks like some kind of Groot combination with an evil demon.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about the designs, and I am really surprised. Like even if the film is very disconnected from the rest, that they decided to postpone it for an entire year, it might be a sign that they're using this chance to do some extra effects work, and I hope it pays off for them.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be interesting.
You just mentioned the villain that was supposed to have, like we talked about it in the previous episode, how much I dislike that.
No.
I hope they have some special prepared for that, because if that villain ends up looking like a symbiote, I'd be bummed.
Yeah, and I think it feels like that to some degree they're trying very hard to do it's all connected in some way, but not giving them their own like identity as what the comics do. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they're also related to the Inhuman royal family, all the connections with space.
Just to keep it like super streamlined.
But especially with Miss Marvel, because that's the big question. Like, how are they going to introduce Miss Marvel? Is she going to be an Inhuman or not? And we don't know the Inhumans technically in the film universe of the MCU, if we discount the terrible TV show.
We should discount that.
Nah, so it's going to be interesting. But a lot has been happening. Anything you're excited for? You hope to see in any time now before the year closes out?
Man, I don't know. Because so much is happening like in the real world. I'm kind of like all the MCU stuff hasn't necessarily been on top of my I guess wish list. I know you and I have been talking about games a lot. I think right now I'm in more of a gaming mood. So as far as MCU stuff go, I'm not like super, drooling at the first sight of content. But I am excited for January 15th. And it's something to look forward to as the year end for sure.
So we're sadly at the end. Thank you everyone for listening for our already 39th episode. Crazy to think how the year has passed so fast. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can follow Charles.
You can follow me on Twitter at CFSVillianMother.
And you can follow me under @thatabel, THATABERL. Of course, you can also follow the MCU Exchange on Twitter. Be sure to keep an eye open for future episodes on Spotify, Anchor, and many more services. We hope Aaron's feeling better so he can join us next time, and we're looking forward to it. Until next time.
Bye, guys.